Meantime, there are Canadians on the ground living in Ukraine as this invasion continues. Canadian-Ukrainian Daniel Bilak joins me now live with more on what his experience has been like. Thank you so much for joining, Daniel. You are just outside of Kyiv, is that correct?
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about your experience there, where you are and how you are doing.
Well, we're fine. We're on the east side of Kyiv. So the fighting has been on the west and the north to this point in time, in the south. However, we do night patrols. We have to deal with saboteurs in the area that try to mark out strategic area buildings. We live near the airport, so that's obviously a key strategic objective for them. They haven't attacked it yet because it's pretty well guarded. They went after the regional airports surrounding Kyiv first because they needed a place to drop their airborne troops as well as to resupply. The resistance here has been just amazing, and I think the only people who aren't surprised are the Ukrainians themselves. We've had this narrative about Ukraine and Ukrainians for a long time that has been quite inaccurate. I'll be generous, and that somehow the Russians were going to roll over, and we're not ready, and we don't have anything to fight with, etc. Nobody understands who Ukrainians are and what they're capable of, including Mr. Putin.
Daniel, take us back a little bit about where you used to live here in Canada, and you've been in Ukraine for decades now, yes?
It's coming on to 30 years. Actually, it's over 30 years. This will be my 31st year in Ukraine. Yeah, I was watching your excerpt of your show just before I came on, and with the beautiful morning in Toronto, and I was looking at some of the office buildings I used to work in when I was practicing law in Toronto, and saw the TD Bank Tower, the Scotiabank Tower, where I used to work. And I feel like I'm on a different planet right now, in watching traffic reports and the weather from Toronto. Here it's hot. It's hot 24/7. Doesn't matter what the temperature is. But look, Ukraine is giving the West and all free democratic countries a lesson in what it takes to defend your freedom. I think Canadians, certainly since the Second World War, there's been no generation that has been called upon to lay down their lives for freedom and to fight for freedom. And I think the lesson for Canadians is you're not entitled to freedom. You earn it and you fight for it. If you don't defend your freedom, somebody else will come and take it from you.
Daniel, these talks are continuing this morning between Russia and Ukraine. I'm just starting to see, again, social media is both a positive and a negative thing because you get instantaneous reaction and live feeds and whatnot. A lot of it still needs to be vetted. But seeing that as these negotiations are ongoing, it is possible we are looking at shelling in Kharkiv. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, where hundreds have been injured here. When you see this news, and again, this needs to be vetted here, what does this say about these so-called negotiations?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that Putin has achieved zero. He's achieved none of his objectives. He doesn't control one Ukrainian city. He controls a bit of land on the border, in some of the border regions. They've got a big nothing burger coming out of this right now. And this is costing him $20 billion a day. He has got sanctions on that is already starting to crush the Russian economy. The ruble has sunk. The Central Bank of Russia raised the interest rate from 9.5% to 20%. All European, all flights, Russian flights inside Russia and outside Russia are basically grounded. They can't fly over European airspace, and because most of their aircraft are leased in Ireland, which has said you're under sanctions, we can no longer allow you to use the aircraft. So if you want to get from Moscow to Vladivostok, you're going to have to walk, drive, or take a train. And so this is not this. The Ukrainians actually have the upper hand right now. This is a psychological war. It always has been. This is how the KGB thinks. And you got to remember, Putin's not a military man. He's a KGB guy. But he plays with your brain. And he was rocking our boat and your boat before the invasion. And then he took the big misstep that he took. And both our difficulty and our salvation is that he believes his myths and propaganda about Ukrainians. So now that the tide has turned, he's in deep trouble because they don't have a plan B. This was supposed to be a walk in the park, 2 days done, where it's all over, and he starts to dictate terms to NATO and the EU. Instead, he finds himself with almost 5,000 dead soldiers, 700 armored vehicles, 300 tanks, 27 aircraft, and a countless number of helicopters all shot down. Doesn't control one major Ukrainian city, any Ukrainian city. And so the President Zelensky probably did the right thing. He needed to give his people a breather, although it's not much of a breather because the Russians are still shelling us. But he also wanted to show the Ukrainians that, look, we are going to take every step possible to try to get a ceasefire and to get the Russians out. So it's not really a negotiation. It's about the only thing the Ukrainians are going to negotiate is, I believe, is take your things, get out, and then we'll talk about what you owe us for all of this. And that's it. I mean, there's nothing else that he can give. So, this is not the Russian. You have to understand, it's the Russians that asked for this meeting. Yes. If you're winning a war and you're about to crush your enemy, you don't ask for a meeting.
Daniel, I wish we had more time to speak with you, but we are thinking of you. Please do stay safe and let's stay in touch. Thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, good. Thank you. God bless.
Appreciate it. Wow, a lot of perspective here, and again, coming from someone who lived in Toronto, feels like a different world, he says, Sid and Dee, on being there for 30 years, and this is a bigger conversation, that's for sure.